everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Shankly Gates podcast. I'm David Brindle. Joining me tonight, as ever, Kieran and Dan Club. Good evening to you both. We've got plenty to talk about today, as Kieran said earlier on, despite there being no game this week. And we've got all sorts to talk about. Obviously, Liverpool have drawn Real Madrid in the Champions League with a potential tie against Chelsea in the semi-finals. If they beat Real Madrid on the way to Istanbul, which sounds quite familiar. We're going to talk Trent Alexander-Arnold not being called up to the England squad. We're going to look at Liverpool's taking the lead of the discussions for non-televised games to be broadcast. We'll have a look at some coronavirus stuff as well, which players have made a difference. It's been a year since, or thereabouts a year since lockdown was announced. So we'll have a look at some players making a difference. A year without fans, or nearly pretty much a year without fans. Kieran will talk a bit more about that in a bit. And of course, we'll look back at probably the highlight of our lockdown was Liverpool winning the league. It seems like a hell of a long time ago now. It's like a different lifetime. But anyway, let's dive straight in then. We'll get instant reactions. Well, not instant reactions, but we'll get reactions to the fact that Liverpool have drawn Real Madrid in the Champions League. Kieran, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts when obviously everyone else was drawn, bar Liverpool and Real Madrid? What were your thoughts when it was finalised?
Do you know what? To be honest, I'll take it. I'll take Real. I was obviously following the draw, and you saw like Porto come out and Dortmund come out, and I thought, to me, they were the two teams that I quite fancy taking on. Obviously, they went away in Man City and Chelsea, and then, well, happily Bayern and PSG drew each other. So yeah, I'm happy with Real Madrid. I think they can be got at. They don't play in they don't play in the usual Bernabeu. They play, I think it's in their the reserve team stadium. I've seen a lot of games there, especially in the group stage. So there's not, and obviously no fans, but you don't have to play in that big stadium. And like I said, I think they can be got at. They've not been pulling up any trees in La Liga. Really, it's quite a tight league there in Spain between the two Madrid clubs and Barca. So I mean, you're in the last day. You're gonna get a tough two legs, no matter who you play. But I think on balance, I'm happy with that, and especially the way the semi-final draw went as well. I think we're in the good half of the draw. It's not just us. I'd say the four clubs, us, Real, Chelsea, and Porto, probably are looking at it off going. There's a chance of going chance of getting to Istanbul here.
Yeah, it was quite strange. Obviously Carragher was talking about it, wasn't he? And he was on the American broadcast a couple of weeks ago saying he could see it coming, he could feel it. Messi and Ronaldo didn't make the quarterfinals last time. That happened in 2005 and all that. Dan, were you sort of getting ahead of yourself and planning the semi-final against Chelsea like I was?
Yeah, all the omens are there, aren't they? Yeah, like Kieran, really, it's a good draw. I think, like he alluded to, it's probably the third best draw we could have got. I think Porto, Dortmund, Real. But yeah, I think it's their training ground they've been playing at this season. The reserves might play there as well, but I think it's where they train necessarily. So, yeah, pretty decent draw, really. Probably the scariest thing about Real Madrid is the fact they're called Real Madrid this season. Like, they're not what they were. They're certainly not the Galacticos, and they're not even the team that beat us in the final a few years ago, So, and that final, as much as it would have been better at Anfield, obviously, if there's fans there, because we would have been probably more up for that than we have been any game in recent memory. But that final should inspire the players. And certainly, the narrative is going to be Mo Salah and Ramos, isn't it? So you'd like to think that there's enough incentive there. There should be anyway. But certainly with what happened a few years ago, the players should be bang up for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that was the main thing I took from it, was the whole revenge angle. And so did pretty much everyone else, to be fair. There's a sour taste in the mouth, isn't it, from that 2018 final, which is to be expected. Mo Salah gets injured, as you say, and we kind of get let down by a goalkeeper as well, with some really ridiculous decisions, wasn't it? So I think there'll be a chance to put that right for Liverpool. Do you think? Would you agree that, as you say, do you think it really is not an easy draw, obviously, because there's only 8 teams left in the top competition in European football? But is it an easier draw than people are saying? Are people not disrespecting Real Madrid, but underestimating them maybe a little bit?
I don't think that anyone's underestimating them. I think they're in a very similar situation to what we are. I think they'll be looking at us the same way we're looking at them. Like, ours is down to injuries in terms of the players we've lost. They've just lost really good players over the past few years. So we're both in very similar situations, really. Although obviously in the league they're in a probably better position than we are. It's not easy, but I think when you look at the bigger picture in terms of the route to the final, it's definitely a relatively, easy way of getting there. The other half of the draw looks horrendous. We could foreseeably get to the final here. What happens then, who knows? But there's a very good chance of us getting there against a lot of odds, really.
Yeah, certainly. But especially with the Premier League form and lack of centre backs, and Liverpool just keep ticking along, which is it's mad, isn't it? It is. It's mad. The club just loves the European Cup. So Kieran, I mean, are you in the same boat as Carragher? Is it going to happen? Are we playing Chelsea in the semis, and we going to Istanbul to win it again? Is that going to happen?
I'd love to think so. It'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? I mean, if you put the league aside, the Champions League this season, we've been absolutely excellent. If you just completely ignore the league, you'd probably say we're one of the fallen teams in the competition. So there's no reason for me why we can't. Obviously, I think we played the home legs at Anfield this time instead of going to Budapest there and back. So
So far,
depending obviously how things go.
Yeah.
So we've still got to sort the home form out. I know it's the second leg, so hopefully we can take a good result in there. But yeah, like I said, that other half of the draw, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculously tough. I mean that's just what you want, really. If you're not playing as well as you can, do the big sides, draw each other, and knocking each other out. So a couple of weeks ago, Real probably looking to draw a bit fearful, but the way it's opened up, I mean, it could be a whole lot worse. So I think there's definitely a lot of positivity to take from it.
Yeah, as you say, it is the biggest club competition on the planet. Obviously, in Europe, all the best teams in Europe get to these stages, and you've got to expect a good team. You're gonna have to beat the Real Madrids. It's not like Manchester City in the FA Cup where they can beat Cheltenham Town and get to the final, Everton and get to the final. Little jab there, I had to get that in. But no, obviously we're happy with the draw and we'll take it, and it's Real Madrid, and it's a shame that it's not at the Bernabeu and we all can't travel over and see it and then go back to Anfield and watch a great game. But it is what it is, and we'll take it from there. Let's talk. Obviously, I think we've all kind of made our feelings clear on the England squad on the upcoming international break. But obviously, the big news coming out of the squad was Trent missing selection. I mean, for me, I'm quite happy that he's not in the squad because it means he won't get injured. Dan, do you share that?
Yeah. I mean, Liverpool fans, as we know, haven't got the biggest connection to the international setup in England squad anyway. So no Liverpool players in it isn't exactly going to fix that bond, if you like. But I was pretty happy with Trent missing out. I was gutted for him because, you've got to imagine he would have liked to have gone. But at the same time, it's good from a Liverpool point of view. It gives him a bit of rest. In terms of just looking at the decision, I could understand it to some respect, but the rationale behind it was what confused me in terms of, we said he hasn't reached the levels, but his levels are so much higher than every other right back, in my opinion, that even if he doesn't reach him, he's still probably the best one out of a lot of them. So early season, his form was poor, but we all know he had COVID now. He had a calf injury, so there's explanations there. So it was disappointing for him, but like you say, I was pretty made up as well. And listen, they're playing San Marino and Albania, and then they've got Poland, to be fair. But the first, who's bothered? You know what I mean? Really, it's abysmal, isn't it? So,
You're absolutely spot on, mate. I'm afraid you are absolutely spot on. Who is bothered? Let's face it. We've said it a few times, haven't we? It's only really interesting when the Euros come around, and even then, I'm not really bothered about England. I'm just enjoy watching a bit of international football. But as you say, it's good that he hasn't been great, has he, Trent, Kieran? You know what I mean? He hasn't been anywhere near his best, and he's probably arguably deserved not getting called up. But still, are you still happy that he's not going?
I'll always support Liverpool over England any day of the week. So for me, I'm absolutely made up. I think for Trent, I think it's the fact that obviously he's been poor this season, but the standards he's set over not just last season, the last few seasons have been, remarkable. So it's going to be a really noticeable drop off this season. Yeah, the playing summary. I mean, I could play right back on whenever it is Thursday, and England still win the game. So he will be disappointed. I think anyone will be. You want to play for your country, don't you? But as me as a Liverpool fan, hopefully I'm made up. He'll be back. We'll just be there training. Sure, Klopp will not to be too disappointed either. So. Yeah, for personal level, I'm made up. I think England have got suitable cover there anyway. There's still world class players you're going to play ahead of them. It's not like a rank outsider from nowhere's coming to take his place. So his performance level has dropped off. So I can see why he's been dropped. But no, for me, I think it's a positive for Liverpool.
Yeah, it is definitely. If only everyone could avoid the England squad. But yeah, as I say, it's just. I think I've had a discussion about the England squad. That when they get to tournaments, you're probably going to need certain games to unlock defences. But when you get to the latter stages, do you pick him against a Germany or a Spain or a Brazil because he's suspect? I don't know the way Southgate plays. I don't know whether Wan-Bissaka is probably a better option for him because Southgate doesn't really have the tactics that can let Trent be his best player that he does for Liverpool. And I know he's been off it, but at the same time, it's a good thing for us at the end of the day, isn't it? And let's just leave it at that. I take it none of you are going to watch England against San Marino or Albania. Is it Albania?
Yeah, Albania now.
I mean, there must be a bet. I'll probably watch an international game, but just not them.
I think Wales are playing Belgium, aren't they?
There'll be a better game on.
Yeah, I usually use the international break to just stay away from football. To be honest, it just drains the life out of me at the minute with no fans being in. It's just it's not the same. So, there won't be much football going on in this house. But anyway, let's stick with the football because obviously reports coming out recent days that Liverpool are leading discussions for the non-televised games to be shown. Obviously, before coronavirus, which seems like ages ago again. There was only ever a couple of games that were shown on television. You had your Friday night now and again, early Saturday, late Saturday, sometimes an even later Saturday, 8:00 kickoff. Then your Super Sundays on Sky, sometimes a 1:30 and 4:30. We could potentially, obviously Monday Night Football as well. Let's not forget that. We could potentially go back to that after lockdown. Obviously, at the moment, with no fans being able to go, it's been opened up so that everybody can watch every game. But Liverpool are leading discussions for when it goes back to the old way, if you like, to show these games that aren't selected by Sky Sports and BT Sport and Amazon Prime, to show these games in some form of capacity. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this, both of you. I'll start with you, Dan. What do you think of that, and how would you go about setting that up so it could be successful?
Yeah, well, I think, that could be one positive that comes from this whole horrible mess, really, that they could change the landscape. They've got the opportunity now to change the way they do football on television by showing every game, because in this day and age, there's not really a lot of reasons why you wouldn't do that. Like the 3 p.m. blackout thing now, especially when we touched upon off air that like every country can watch our games, but for some reason we can't, doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's definitely a scope to do it. And I know lower league clubs who don't get picked for television anyway, they've been, I think it's that I follow, they can watch their teams on that. So the platform's already there in a lot of ways. So I think it's got to be a goer for when, obviously, the football landscape goes back to normal slightly. And I've heard this spoken about before, a bit like a Premier League Netflix. And personally, I think that has got to come into play at some point. If the Premier League made their own sort of subscription channel for, like, you get rid of Sky Sports for a start, which just charge extortionate prices, and you went to £10-15 a month for every Premier League game. In my opinion, and I haven't done the numbers on it because it's not my forte, but the Premier League would get that many people signing up to it. The money they got from Sky would be negligible, really. They'd end up making more money from their own sort of TV online channel, streaming based, than they would anything else. Now, whether these discussions are about necessarily that or just the sole games that don't get picked up, I don't know. But there has to be. There's a market there, and it's got to be a go, in my opinion, because what you got to remember as well is people after all this palaver might still be a little bit anxious of going out and going back to matches. Yeah. So if they can watch it on telly or online, then that's even better.
Yeah, 100%. And I was going to mention what you mentioned there about the Netflix style subscriber thing. They've seen that pay-per-view doesn't work. They've seen that during COVID, it doesn't work. People will not pay £15 to watch Burnley against West Brom. It won't happen.
No.
They might pay £15 a month to watch all the games that aren't televised on Sky. I think that's how it'll go, if I'm honest. I can't see the Premier League ever saying Sky Sports and BT, see ya, you know, we're going to do it on our own. I think there'll always be games on that. But obviously we could talk about how much they cost all day. They cost a fortune. But I don't think that's really going to change. I think this will be a £10, £15 thing where you can watch any of the 3 o'clock games on a Saturday. Because I mean, we were talking about it, weren't we, before we went live? All the other foreign countries do it.
Yeah.
Australia do it, America do it. Every country does it. We're the only ones that don't have access to our own 3 o'clock kickoff. So I think there's definitely scope for it to be done. Kieran, your thoughts on this one, mate?
Yeah, I'd have to completely agree. I think it's something that'll benefit, both sides. I mean, the fans and the Premier League. I mean, I'm just about old enough to remember the days of Prem Plus back in the day when that was a thing. So something not paying per game, but like you say, paying per month and that.
I think it wasn't it? Wasn't Prem Plus per game? Was it? Was it like
I think it was a £5 a game or something like
that. Back in the days of a lack of technology, you had to get your dad to phone up Sky and say, "Can I have this game or 4 on a Sunday?"
If all the non-televised games are going to be 3 o'clock of a Saturday, you can only probably really watch one at a time anyway. I mean, probably the only difference would be obviously teams playing Europa League and playing Sunday. You have them Sunday games playing televised, so. But there's no reason why they can't have a monthly subscription thing. It'll benefit both people. People, as we've seen, they'll watch it if it's a fair price. Definitely. From a Liverpool point of view, I don't think. I mean, obviously we're leading the discussion. Before all this started, I'd say in a 38-game season, usually we were on the telly, or at least 25 games. So I think we were one of the ones who were actually on the BT Sky pretty much near enough every week. So it was only the odd occasional game that you probably weren't watching. So but it's still want to watch all the games, don't you? Especially the game from this year. I didn't watch the Sheffield United game on pay-per-view because I just wasn't paying it. So if they get this right, there's definitely huge potential for them to make a lot of money off this, and it'll satisfy people because the demand's there. The people want to watch it. They'll watch the Premier League games if it's at a fair price. So I think that definitely something to look into because it'll benefit both sides. Yeah,
as you say, there's potential there for it to definitely. It's got the demand, and again, I mentioned to you that you were saying you could only potentially watch one game 3 o'clock kickoff. If you had access to all of them, you could flick between them, kind of like an Amazon Prime style thing. I think it'd work quite well on Amazon Prime, on a streaming service where you can flick between, or you can have a kind of Soccer Saturday style show where you see the goals, and you watch a game and. They have one in America called Goal Zone where you watch a game and they show you every goal as it goes in. I think it'd work. I really do, and I think eventually it will take over from the likes of Sky Sports and BT Sport. Go on, Dan.
I think they'd have to be careful with the sort of games they were putting on though, because like Kieran touched upon there, like obviously as Liverpool fans and fans of big clubs in general, we're often not on at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Like even in normal times, the amount of times we'd kick off at that time is a handful a season at most. Now, are you going to get fans of them clubs paying per month to watch, their side maybe once every 2 months at 3 o'clock? It's not really like I watch football regardless, but a hell of a lot of people pretty much only watch their side. So I think they have to be careful if they carry on alongside BT, Sky, and Amazon as it is now, because they'll get the pick of the games. If this subscription thing's left with the runt, if you like, then I'm not sure it'll work that way. I think they'd have to put the foot down really with Sky and BT if it was gonna really kick off, to be honest.
That's where it becomes quite murky and quite grey, isn't it? Because then you will have, your likes of your Burnleys and other teams that maybe feel that they don't get I'm picking on Burnley a lot, and I do apologise, but they just play rubbish football, so they're getting it. They will complain that all of our games are on whatever this streaming service might be. Yeah, we've also got to pay for Sky. And that's where it's going to become a bit of a grey area. That's where you've got to kind of iron it out. But as I say, I think it could work. Maybe they look into access for other things, like, I don't know, can you watch live training, and can you watch under 23s games? And if you're going to charge people for something, you need to give them them content, don't you? And let's see what happens. Liverpool have been at the forefront of several things in the past couple of years that have completely bombed. Project Restart being one of the main ones. But let's see how it goes. Obviously, we're looking ahead to post-coronavirus times. We're still in the midst of all this pandemic stuff at the moment. And I want to take a little look back at particularly players, maybe not necessarily Liverpool players, anyone that you think has made a difference during coronavirus. Obviously, you've got Marcus Rashford, who's been doing a better job of being in opposition to the government than any of the other parties.
Amen.
He's been fantastic, hasn't he? And even as a Liverpool fan, when I see Marcus Rashford on the telly now and you watch United, you can't help but like him. You just can't help it. And that's weird. That's really weird, liking someone in a Man United shirt. But I just wanted to put it to you both and see if you had any ideas of anyone that you'd like to give a mention to who's played their part in the community.
Now, you want to go first, Dan, or?
Yeah, I was gonna. He said not Liverpool, but the one
it can be anyone.
Yeah, the one I remember more than anything was Andy Robertson. Doing a lot of food bank stuff early on. I know we did a hell of a lot up in Glasgow, because obviously that's where he's from originally. But he brought it down here as well. He did a lot of food bank stuff around Liverpool. So, and the Liverpool squad generally, to be honest. But if you look, you look further than that. There's been a hell of a lot all around the Premier League, to be fair, and a hell of a lot of people, including Pep Guardiola and people like that. A lot of it was donations in terms of monetary, but like I say, for me, Robertson and the food bank stuff was probably the biggest one.
Typical Andy Robbo, isn't it? Again, another man you can't help but love. What a man. Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Marcus Rashford, rightly so, should take most of the plaudits for what he's done. But I think that did spark a lot of things. I mean, obviously, I think there was the Premier League captains got together, I think, in a WhatsApp chat as well.
Yeah.
And they made some donations, which I thought was a really good thing. But it's not just Premier League. I want to focus on that. There's all kinds of stories from Football League, non-league clubs that don't get mentioned at all, and they put as much into their their clubs, their communities, really. That these Football League teams, they've got there's a lot more community spirit. They're a lot tighter. So they do all kinds of. I heard stories of kitchen staff and that who were on not even furlough, just working on a voluntary basis, just to make hundreds and thousands of meals for school kids, for all the underprivileged people. So it's right up and down across the country. Some stories you might not read, but I think pretty much every single the Premier League, Football League, and non-league club has had their part to play in this, and I think they've been fantastic.
Yeah, they have. Plenty have made a big difference, and they're all worthwhile giving a shout out. And I wish we had more time to do so. But yeah, as I say, it's been a tough time for many people. People losing their jobs, people losing their businesses, people not being able to see their families, and for the ones of in society who are the most fortunate, if you like, footballers who get paid a lot of money to do something that's extremely fun. Good on them to those that are giving back. Absolutely. I want to touch on the fact that it's been a year now, or maybe just over now, actually, since Anfield was full. Let's come into the home. A long time ago again, a game that people spoke about. I think we've spoke about this, that it should probably never have gone ahead, and Madrid fans should never been allowed to travel. Let's look back at the year in general, and what are your overriding thoughts from football as a whole, or just your experience of not being able to go to the game? What's it been like?
For me, I was at the Atletico Madrid game. and it never felt right being there. Because I think that the day before Madrid closed schools, and you just started to think, this is a bit much, isn't it? 5,000 people from this city are coming over here tomorrow, and that's how it transpired. But yeah, generally speaking, the year, it's such a strange one, because for about 3 or 4 months, obviously there was a whole up in the air about null and void and all that palaver, which is obviously excruciating from a Liverpool point of view. And then there was obviously the euphoria of actually winning it. But it's all felt a little bit, certainly since football came back this season, a little bit hollow and a little bit nothing in it. Certainly some games, you watch some games of football and you can get involved and you get infused, and you watch others and it's a real struggle, to be honest. So I think it's underlined the fact that football without fans is nothing. But for me personally, the closer we seem to get to normality, and you see videos on Twitter and memories of certain occasions, like it was Bayern Munich away, the anniversary of a couple of days ago, and I was watching videos back, and it was just, you really miss it, and you start to think about, for me, that first, and it's going to sound pretty soppy, but that first You'll Never Walk Alone back in Anfield, like after everything we've been through as a collective and as a nation and as a world in many ways, like that first, because that's what means so much to me anyway, Liverpool. That first You'll Never Walk Alone back in a full Anfield, just to say thanks, and with the likes of things that happened to Klopp and Alisson and everything that's gone on at that club in the past 12 months, like that would be quite a moment. And I don't think it'll hit home until that happens. Like I just kind of got on with not going to the game. That's just how it is. What can you do? But the closer we get to perhaps going back as a collective, the more I start to miss it in a weird way.
I'm totally with you there, mate, to be honest. Totally with you. And I think that's really poignant what you've just said, that first, when that song hits at Anfield and it's full again for the first time, which I hope it is not far away. That's going to be a moment. That's going to be a real moment. And I think, was it the first game back? Was it the Merseyside derby, the first game back? It was, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And I remember watching it thinking, I wonder what this is going to be like. And it just wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. And as you say, Dan, there's times where you watch a game and you can kind of get into it and you almost forget that there's no fans there. But then there's certain games where you just think, wow, there's no atmosphere. It's almost like the players can't be bothered as well. And that's not, I'm not having a dig at anyone. I just think they're used to a certain atmosphere and a certain environment to play football in, and it just mustn't feel the same. So I mean, I just can't wait. I can't wait for life to get back to normal, where you can just go and watch a game of football and be with your mates. And I think that's what it's all about. Kieran, yourself, what have you missed more than anything about not being able to go to the game, and what's your overriding thoughts on the experience?
I mean, yeah, it's been a hell of a year, hasn't it? An absolute rollercoaster. Yeah, I too was at the Atletico Madrid Champions League game, and as Dan said, it just didn't feel right at all. And as as soon as they went 2-1 and 2-2, the game had gone. I was just sat there thinking, this is probably going to be the last time I'll be, sat here for God knows how long. And so it's transpired. I mean, me personally, I've been fortunate enough to. I was successful in a ballot for the West Brom game. Just after Christmas it was.
What was that like? Talk me through the experience of going to the game, the actual game itself, and what was different about it?
Honestly, there was so much different. Like I remember, just a few days before the game, being successful for the ballot, picking your seat, you've got to fill in a health questionnaire, which you would never ever do going to a normal game. You arrive at the ground. I mean, the amount of checks. I thought Liverpool actually dealt with it very, very well. They were very thorough in what they were doing. You had to show your phone to a steward to say you filled your questionnaire in, that you're fit and healthy to go in the game. Then you had your match ticket on your phone as well, which I think that will be a thing which will certainly all clubs up and down the country will look to probably do, just because it was so easy. You download the ticket to your phone and it was simple. But you were there, I got at least 2 briefings from stewards on the way in about what I could and couldn't do. I had, this is even before I reached a turnstile. I had to, have a temperature check to the head. I think there was, 2 ID checks as well, and that's when you finally reached the turnstile. So completely different. One thing I do remember, and something I've never seen before, is you walking along to the game, and there's the bloody 26 and the 27 bus just going past outside on the road. I'm thinking, no, this doesn't happen. There's no one. You see them long queues outside the chippy, outside the cop, non-existent, weren't there? I don't think the chippies are open. So it's absolutely nothing like you could imagine, and you actually get into the ground, and I mean it's a relief. It's great. You're back to the place where you love, where you want to be. Bit different for me. I was actually in the cop. I've never actually been in the cop for a league game, so for me that was actually really special. But yeah, I've been spaced out from everyone, only having 1,500 people. Which you try to make it the best as possible, but it's just nothing like the days and the nights that we used to. I mean, I was disappointed. Since the fans were back in, that was the first game we didn't win. I think we beat Leicester, we beat Wolves before then, and I got the game which was West Brom, which disappointing 1-1. I mean, to be honest, I feel a bit of a curse because since that West Brom game, Liverpool haven't won at home, so. Probably, if you're looking for someone to blame, it's probably me. But it was good to get back, but nothing like it. It used to be or it was. So hopefully, I mean, there is talk of potentially getting fans back towards the end of the season. For the last home game against Crystal Palace. Not sure how that's going to work, so we'll have to get more news on that. But hopefully, yeah, as Dan said, that first You'll Never Walk Alone will be. Fantastic, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a Premier League and another Champions League trophy to show off to the fans?
Yeah. Just before we move on from that, obviously Kieran was had his 15 minutes of fame. He was the face of no fans allowed back in the grounds. I don't know whether you've seen that, man. I'll have to show you it in a minute. I couldn't find it.
You got to get the picture, yeah.
Yeah, he was the face of it across the country. So surprised he didn't get a lot of abuse on Facebook and Twitter. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a year. It's been a bit weird. Liverpool have been the best team in the world, followed by the worst team in the country in terms of home form, all in the space of lockdown. But obviously winning the league was huge. So we're going to reminisce a little bit about that now. How did you feel? Let's go back to lockdown being announced, and obviously sport ended straight away. How did you feel? Did you think we've come this close and it's going to get stolen from us? What were your thoughts at that time, Dan, if you cast your mind back?
It was hard not to think like that in so many ways, because this was so, I don't want to say unprecedented, but I suppose I'll have to. It was so unprecedented that, like, no one knew what was going to happen next. There was a chance that the football authorities would just say, listen, we don't know what's going on. We don't know how long this is going to take. We're knocking it on the head. And that's that. So there was definitely a fear, and with it being so long for Liverpool, like there was an element of, oh God, like this is happening, and this is happening to us, and we are cursed. So it was hard not to think like that. And when you get rival fans saying null and void and all the rest of it, but at the same time, the sensible person in me kind of said, this is a multi-million-pound industry, and they're not just gonna knock it on the head at the earliest opportunity. They're gonna wait and they're gonna play things out properly. Otherwise, it'll be a mess. Like, so much of the season had gone by that point. I thought they simply can't do that. And obviously, as it transpired, they didn't. But that was probably a roller coaster. That was probably the hardest potential thing to deal with. Like, had they have null and voided it, there's half a chance. It's so difficult to say, and it's so easy to say in hindsight, but me and football would have had a serious falling out, because I just couldn't fathom dominating the league and being so close just to have it taken away by the most, in so many ways, ridiculous circumstance. So yeah, losing sport was hard, but like I said earlier, like, you just kind of had to just crack on with it. And we all missed the match, we all missed meeting up with mates and a drink, but unfortunately, that's the world we were in. I don't think anyone expected it to still be in it a year later, but here we are. But yeah, in terms of the whole null and void and the whole Liverpool maybe being not stripped but denied, the league. It crossed my mind, and it was pretty terrifying, to be honest.
It was, and I think if we're going to null and void any season, it should have been this one with no fans at all.
Yeah.
At least Liverpool done the vast majority of their work in front of full stadiums, and to be fair, lost their unbeaten record at Watford when fans were still allowed to go in. So, Kieran, if you cast your mind back to when it came back, what was it like for you? Obviously, you're over that sort of fear of, we're going to get stolen, it's going to be null and void. What was it like for you then? Obviously the league was basically done. Liverpool just had to pick up a few more points and it was done and dusted. So what was it like?
Yeah, pretty much like that. It was just, when the news had finally been announced that, we're going to get back underway, it was, just thrilled that, we're going to get to, see what we all wanted, the team lift the league. Obviously, I just go back to a bit before that. I was, nervous because the Scottish League and the Dutch League, they both got null and voided. Yeah. So there was still that doubt in the mind of, hang on a minute, not necessarily the Scottish, but I thought the Dutch League. But then I think pretty much all the others, went ahead. So all the other main leagues, went ahead in Europe. So we were all right with that. But yeah, I mean, also credit to the Bundesliga being ahead of us. That filled a lot of time before we got to the Premier League itself. So I watched non-stop Bundesliga games for a month. But when we finally got to the Premier League, that first game got announced. Aston Villa and Sheffield United it was. And absolutely nothing to do with Liverpool, nothing to do with the title race. But it was just, fantastic that A, there's live football to watch, but B, more importantly for us, the league's getting back underway and we're finally going to get to see, what we've all been waiting for. And so we only had to wait. I think we only had to wait a week. I think it was 8 days. I think it was the Thursday after the Wednesday it started. When obviously City dropped points at Chelsea. The day after we beat Palace 4. I think that Palace 4-0. That was the relief. We drew the derby a couple of days. I mean, you probably take a point away at Everton any season. Never mind just coming back. So that 4-0 Palace win, even with no fans, that we were pretty flawless that night anyway. And that was the night where I just settled everyone down. Even if City beat Chelsea, we'd have picked it up in the next game. But yeah, remembering that euphoria of, I think it was the hottest night of the year as well. It was absolutely baking, hot all day. But it didn't mean a thing. I got absolutely no sleep that night. I mean, stupidly enough, I didn't book the day off work after. I was starting at 5 o'clock the next morning. So that was a very, very tiring day. But one I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Just all that emotion of, not winning the league and, those seasons where, we thought we got a chance here getting to that, but not getting over that final hurdle. So, yeah, just an unbelievable outburst of emotion and just, being proud of the one, to me, the one thing at the top of the priority list, winning that, first Premier League.
I remember that day very well, that first day back in work the next day. For those who don't know, me and Kieran worked together in another place, let's just say, for advertising reasons. But then I'm kind of going to give it away with my next thing anyway. I remember bringing a Liverpool top and a scarf to put in the van. Saying that doesn't really give it away. People still don't really know unless they know.
Yeah.
Dan's like, "What's going on here? What's going on?" But yeah, that was a special day. I remember being at Anfield the night before for work purposes, but I would have gone anyway, to be honest, regardless of the lockdown, because it was just an outpouring of emotion, and there was so many happy people, and it was just an amazing feeling. I dread to think what it might have been like if it wasn't lockdown. I dread to think of how many people might have been there, and I mean, I'd hated living there that night. I would have absolutely hated it, but just a real special moment and one I'll never forget. The only thing that I did let it down was the fact that my dad couldn't come because he didn't want to go and be with crowds and stuff like that. And I do sort of think, we've waited all this time and you couldn't really share that moment with everyone. But what about you, Dan? If you look back, and did you go to Anfield, and what was it all about for you?
Yeah, it's a strange one because, when it actually happened, obviously the Chelsea City game confirmed it. I don't know if it's because we weren't there or whether we weren't playing, but listen, I was I was emotional. I was a bit of a wreck, to be honest. I went down, which was unbelievable, obviously. But in terms of like the initial, it happened, I was a bit lost for words in many ways. I think the whole will it, won't it happen that went on for the months before kind of took it out of me. And I think a lot of my euphoria came when football came back and it was like gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like the umming and ahhing about whether it would even happen was so draining and so painful that when the Premier League basically announced that it was going to get started again, I think that was probably the biggest moment of celebration because there was no way we weren't winning the league from that moment on. So in so many ways that confirmed it. And I think like a lot of people, like rival fans say to me now, you never got to celebrate the league. But one, we did celebrate the league, obviously. But I think with a league, it's different because I celebrated that league probably in like February when we beat United. You know what I mean? Like, it was done so long before we actually wrapped it up. Like we were so far ahead. We celebrated that league months before. You know what I mean? We weren't losing it from very early on. But you know, you're right in terms of not being able to celebrate it with the people we love and the people we normally would. But and listen, this is my usual optimism. But in a way, I think that'll make it hopefully more special. Should we ever and when we do it again? Like, hopefully that's in normal circumstances and nothing dramatic happens to make it weird again. But if, say, we go and win the league in the next 2 or 3 seasons under Klopp, like, that outpouring of passion and sheer, that would be just ridiculous after what we've been through now. It was going to be ridiculous anyway after 30 years, but could you imagine after all this and not getting to share it, to then go and do it with everyone? It would just be beyond the realms, in my opinion. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Anyway, putting a positive spin on it for a change.
As ever, love it, Dan. No, you're right though. That is that again. I mean, I was when I went to Anfield that night, and I thought, I wonder what it would have been like had it been, because it was rammed. It was rammed. The main stand was chocker. The Walton Brecht. I always get confused. Walton Brecht Road outside the Cop in it. That was just absolutely full of bodies and you couldn't move. And I thought, well, if this is during a lockdown,
and it shouldn't happen. Yeah.
And it shouldn't happen. Yeah. And you know, a lot of people did stick to the rules. What would it have been like? What, you know, it was just, I remember driving up there with me, all my kit and thinking, I'm going to get robbed here. Like someone's just going to take this off me out of just pure joy. Like, oh, give us that camera, see ya. Do you know what I mean? And from literally, I'd say it was like Queen's Drive up that hill towards Anfield from there, from the Asda and the Mackies there, was just like a standstill of people walking up to the ground, cars, people blaring "You'll Never Walk Alone." It was a special moment. It really was a special moment. And you know, obviously you look and you go, okay, it was a bit daft and people maybe shouldn't have done it. But at the same time, I don't think there was any evidence that showed any major coronavirus breaks that came from that gathering. So, you know, maybe just win the league and get on the ale and stop COVID.
We weren't the only ones anyway, Dave. I know.
No, exactly. I mean, you had Leeds as well.
Leeds fans, when they got promoted, were all out there. You've seen the Rangers fans recently as well, celebrating their league win as well.
It might be a bit early to talk about the Rangers one in terms of the virus, but with Leeds, I mean, I don't know. I might be wrong. It might be incorrect, but I didn't see anything that said it linked to big surges of the virus. And Leeds, very, very similar position to Liverpool, you know, getting back to maybe not as long in terms of the wait, but very similar position.
As well.
Very similar.
Rangers waited 10 years.
Yeah,
right.
A hell of a long
how
time.
These 3 things have happened in this horrendous situation, in it. It's mad.
Yeah,
like.
It's not fair, is it? And I just hope normal service doesn't resume. You know, when COVID goes away and we go back to Celtic, City, and whoever, Leeds getting relegated or whatever. I just hope, you know, I think those 3 teams in particular, I will be keeping an eye out and just hoping that, especially us, obviously, because I don't want us to have a parade this summer. I just don't want to.
I know what you mean.
Unless you win the big one.
Unless you win the Champions League, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. You know, absolutely. But, I mean, I don't want to see a Premier League parade happen this summer when City are already champions. And, no, even if they say, look, we said we were going to have one, it's like, no, let's not.
Yeah. I think common sense will prevail. We've got 3 Liverpool fans here saying it's not worth it.
Don't want it.
There's got to be Liverpool fans in the club saying the same thing.
You can just imagine what all the stuff that would be said. Like, I know you shouldn't take into account what other fans say, but I don't think it'd feel right.
You're not winning that argument.
That's my gut feeling anyway.
Yeah. Go on, Dan.
Sorry, when we win something else, for me, like obviously something big, not if we win the League Cup next season, but if we win the Champions League,
got more chance to win the league.
If we go on and win another league, but the Champions League's the big one. Say we win that in the next season or two, we can do it all in one go. We've got to wait. Like,
yeah, I agree there, and I hope that's a motivation for the players, because obviously, you don't take that into account really. We've spoke about Liverpool being quite poor this season and overlying factors for it, and you don't, maybe them not being able to celebrate that, because obviously, after Madrid they came back and celebrated the Champions League, and the scenes of it was a different route this time as well, wasn't it, to going down that dock road, seeing all those people just gathering, and for some players that who haven't seen it before, which is probably the vast majority of them, that would have been amazing. And again, the league would have been 2 or 3 times bigger, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So for them to not have to know at the start of this season that you're not going to have a parade because you didn't even have one last year, is that played a part in them sort of going, well, what's the point? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back. Go on, Dan.
No, you're right. Go on.
No. All I was going to say is, so going back to how we were feeling about the league win and all that, I think you were right in saying the way it was won so far early. Yeah. I mean, for me, the season before, I know we lost to City, but that title, if we could, I'd love to. Obviously, you'd take any league win, but to do it, in a proper race, it's because those last 10 games for me, they were some. I know we in the end we lost and we were disappointed, but that of going up against City head to head, I'd love to win a title race like that. I think that for me that really be fantastic. Obviously, you'll take any way of getting it, but that particular season for me was fantastic.
I remember being at the Etihad that year when they beat us 2-1 and just thinking, oh no, that's it. You just had this, and because you could see the City players just going absolutely crazy at full time. I'll never forget John Stones just like looking at the floor and just celebrating to himself, and really and I just thought, oh, that's it. And for them to have that feeling of winning the league with us right on their tails and giving it everything, that must have been extra special. But our day will come.
I'd just flip it round.
Yeah. Do you have something to add there, Dan? Or?
Yeah, well, just to touch on that quickly, we've cruised one now, so we may as well do a tight one next. That's probably
that's the Liverpool way, isn't it? Let's face it.
But I've just on the sort of fans thing, really, with the players, it probably did feel like an anticlimax in many ways. Like, as much as they celebrated amongst themselves, there probably was, once that had all died down, there probably was a little bit of like not quite the same, is it? Because obviously they went straight back to an empty stadium, and it's been that way ever since. They haven't had to have their moment, and that is so not fair in so many ways. Like, even when we get back next year, although we might finish with the 8th this season, I hope not, obviously, but we could do. Like, every single Liverpool fan in that stadium next year will still show the appreciation for what they've done. We're not going to do a parade, hopefully, for it, but we'll show, and immediately they'll feel like, oh yeah, that was quite a big deal.
Yeah, as you say, there'll be certain players that understood the fact that, every one of them knew, but none of them may not have understood that how big winning the league was to this club. I mean, we'll have all grown up not seeing a league title and desperate for it, and it probably isn't. It was probably not the way we imagined it would have been growing up. It certainly wasn't, but for them to not really get to see how important it was, they might have just thought, well, it's just a league, who cares, sort of thing. So, I think, we didn't take that into account, did we, in earlier episodes? Maybe that was another talking point that we've just brought up. But
I think that's what players, that's why you play the game, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you want to win trophies, but to do it, imagine, as you say, lifting the Premier League in front of a full stadium. They're the moments that people you want to play for.
Yeah.
Like the scenes you saw in Madrid.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Obviously, it'd be even better in front of your own fans in your own home stadium. But yeah, so you don't probably have that's impacted the players because they've probably missed out on probably the greatest couple of days of their lives there.
But you know what? At the same time, I think it'll go down as quite an iconic trophy lift on the Kop as well. I think you've got to take a sort of... I'm taking a bit of leaf out of Dan's book. I'm being a bit positive here, but yeah, you'll probably never see that again. And it probably would have looked really weird for them players lifting it to an empty stadium. But for us watching it back now and having that memory of them lifting it on the Kop, that's a pretty special memory to have, and it's an iconic shot. I think there'll ever be another trophy lift like it. So
yeah,
the money that was spent on that light parade, like.
Exactly. They had to do something, didn't they? They had to do
Yeah,
something for us.
they had to.
Yeah.
That was
and do you know what made me laugh is
yeah, that makes sense.
Knackered now.
What made me laugh is though, there was people, it was all floating about on social media. Oh, should we go to Anfield for the trophy lift? And it was like, no. Why would you go and stand outside the ground and not see it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I understood on the day when Chelsea won and that, and well, I don't know whether he won. I can't remember.
He won. It was actually a good game.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. No, I mean the City game. The City game when City. I understood that night because it was emotional, and I completely understood people wanting to be and be surrounded by all that joy and emotion. I understood it, but for that, I was just like, why would you go and stand outside Anfield and miss the whole thing you've been waiting the season for? But anyway, I digress. We'll call it a night there, gents. Thank you very much both for your time as ever. It's always a pleasure. Kieran, Grayson and Dan Club. We'll be back again next week at some point. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead at the moment. Obviously, no games yet. No games till the 8th of April, is it, or something like that, or the 4th? I can't remember. Arsenal next anyway, haven't we?
Arsenal away, yeah.
Still a while away. We've got some dreadful international football to take us over until then. Unless you like, TV, like Line of Duty, maybe stick Line of Duty on instead. That'll get you by. But yeah, anyway, thank you both for your time as ever. We'll catch everyone who's watching next week. And yeah, thanks very much. See you soon.